Hi everyone. A very warm welcome to today's production. My name is Julie Poplin, a Boorowa Rotarian, and I've been given the honour of opening today's proceedings. A couple of housekeeping matters. If there's an emergency, we go out the back doors and over to your left to the Oval. If you're needing the facilities, the ladies is on this side, the gents is on that side. The show you're about to experience has been produced by This Is My Brave Australia, more commonly known as TIMBA. What is TIMBA? It is a mental health charity dedicated to breaking the stigma associated with mental health and illness, one story at a time. This company looks after all the technical aspects of auditioning, rehearsing, staging, ticketing, etc., that ensures the show happens, and we thank them for their expertise. A thank you to Angie Webb, psychologist from AWI Services, for her support of the participants through this process and being available to speak with anyone here who would like to have a chat about anything or anyone that is causing them issues or anything that arises from the stories told today. Today's show, A Song of Resilience, has been made possible thanks to the sponsorship of Mainline Dino, along with the Rotary Club of Boorowa. We Rotarians are very grateful to Mainline Dino for their major contribution and to the local community whose support of the Boorowa Community Op Shop allowed our club to raise the remaining funds required. At intermission, just forgot to tell you that one in the housekeeping, at intermission there will be some sandwiches, slices and drinks available, and there's a donation box. There's no cost for the actual items. A very special and sincere thank you to all the locals who have volunteered to share their stories with us. Your generosity and your courage is greatly appreciated. And to you, the audience, our deepest thanks for your attendance today, and we hope that the show informs and inspires you. And remember, if needing to chat after the show, Angie's available. Thank you.
Going up a little bit, there we go. My name's Tim Daly. I'm the Executive Officer and founder of This Is My Brave Australia. The reason that we're in Boorowa is because of Lynn Diskin, who we did a show with in Canberra a few years ago, and Lynn promised that she'd bring one to Boorowa, and she finally did. So thank you, Lynn, for the invite. On the second page of the program, I've written a foreword, but I'm not going to read it because you can all read it, and I've got a few words to say that I want to say about what we're doing today. We go around the country doing this, finding people from the local communities to share their stories, and there's always people who are willing to put their hand up to share their stories. And sometimes there's people who can't, which is a shame, but they're not far enough along in their mental health journey to be able to share quite yet. And we totally understand that. But they've put their hand up, and we know they're on the right path to doing the right thing and sharing their stories, but it's not for everybody. The reason that we do this is that we're an addition to the mental health services that are out there. Mental health services do their job, which is great, but what sometimes gets lost in the process is the voice of the person who's going through the process. I think I was saying to somebody just before, I read an article about the long waits in emergency departments for people with mental health issues. In one of the cases, it was up to 33 hours that they waited in ED. And I mean, that's bad for anybody, but someone who's put their hand up and said, I need serious help for my mental health condition, it's not conducive to sit in ED for 33 hours. But I read the article, and it quoted the hospital, it quoted the nurses, it quoted the doctors, didn't quote any of the patients, did not get their perspective on the whole thing. And I think that's what's missing a lot of the time, is that perspective from the person with the lived or living experience. And that's what we're doing today, is that we're giving you the perspective from the person who's living the journey. And hopefully it resonates with some of the people in this room to say, oh, maybe I'm going through the same thing. And maybe I need to put my hand up, because early intervention is critical, is so critical about managing someone's mental health. I mean, even if just you've been feeling sad for a couple of weeks, that's the time to put your hand up and go see the GP and just say, look, I'm going through this at the moment. It doesn't need to be a crisis. By the time you get to crisis, sometimes it's too late. Let's get there before. The people behind us can lead you on that journey because they've been through it. And it's wonderful that they're all here today to share their stories. We really hope you get something wonderful out of it. Usually at this time in any event, people tell you to turn your phones off, put them away. I'm telling you, take your phone out. Record this. Send messages to people to tell them where you are, because what we're trying to do is get a message out to people. We want as much as what we call the ripple effect coming from this event out into the community to say, we're out here talking, we're talking about this, it's okay to talk about it. We build these scenarios to give people a safe space to talk about mental health, rather than, as we keep saying, stigmatising the subject itself. The more we brush it under the carpet, the worse it gets, and people are stigmatised and shamed and feel that they are worthless and can't get help. Of course they can get help. I've got people at the back of the room here who are going to help you. They're here today. You can go and see them and talk to them straight away. So the help is out there. People just need to be encouraged to put their hand up and get some help. So our next speaker is Nikita Beatty. When she's not bathing in the stars or chasing the aurora, you'll find her working in a garden or rescuing plants from her local garden centre. Today she'll be sharing some insight on what it's like to run a business and live with BPD, borderline personality disorder, chronic depression and PTSD. Please join me in welcoming Nikita, the gardener from Cowra.
Hello, everybody. All right, thank you for coming. I just need to get my notes out of this belt. Thank you for coming on this very cold day. Often it deters people from leaving the house. All right, so as mentioned, my name is Nikita. I'm a horticulturalist in Cowra, and this is my action figure. It's pretty much me to a T, including the multiple pairs of pink shoes. But what that box doesn't show you are my invisible accessories, the ones that I acquired throughout my life's journeys, and they are chronic depression, borderline personality disorder, and PTSD. They aren't your traditional accessories, they aren't ideal, but they have helped me cope through some very difficult and traumatic events, and I'd like to share with you some strategies on how I manage my symptoms. 10 years ago, I started a gardening business because I have a passion for growing things, and I don't mind getting my hands dirty. I'm a qualified horticulturalist, and gardening is where my heart is the happiest. BPD is probably the strongest influence in my day-to-day life, and these are some traits of it and how I deal with them. Impulsive behavior. Impulsive behavior convinced me to move to the best country in the world, start my own business, and take risks that the average person may not take. It helps me to seek out opportunities and adventures that help me grow my business. The obsessive compulsive behavior. I have an obsession to save plants from my local garden center, and I also have a compulsion to spend money. How I make that work for me is I spend money on the sick plants, I take them home and I nurture them, and then I sell them onto Marketplace, or I incorporate them into a garden that I've designed and that I look after. This helps me to recoup the money back, plus everybody feels like they're getting a deal. The obsessive behavior forces me to do all of my jobs at 110%. It ensures that I'm consistent at giving high quality work to my clients, and it helps me to do better and to be better. Frequently changing jobs. This one is no problem for me because instead of changing my main core job, I have several different clients with a variety of different needs. I always have clients that move away, or they change their garden ideas, or they no longer need my assistance. but I'll always have something different to do when I go to work, and it keeps my brain busy. Creating things really stabilizes my symptoms. Being my own boss helps me with the flexibility that I need on my days that aren't so great. I don't have the desire to change my career because, to me, this is the perfect job, and it suits my personality and the life that I want to live. Unstable self-image. Look, I literally wear a hat every day to work, no makeup, and I come home filthy. I don't have much human interaction, and the plants don't criticize my appearance. I am my happiest in my work uniform. I wear it just about every day. It fits me, it's comfortable, and I don't have to think about it, so it's one less stress off my list. Feeling empty and lonely. I'm still working on this one. I have a void that nothing fills, and it's very hard. However, I have found that serving others and helping people in their gardens make me feel like I have a purpose, and that helps me out a bit. I also go home to my dogs that show me unconditional love and acceptance. There are heaps of positive traits that people with BPD have, and I'd like to share those with you. With BPD, we become exceptionally resilient people. We are your best friend, your biggest cheerleader, and we will help you reach your goals that you never thought imaginable. We are passionate and emotional people, so when we say, we get it and we feel your pain, we do at depths that you can't imagine. We are curious and creative, resourceful, so include us in your ideas and events, and you will see us shine. Try to think of yourself as a plant. Place yourself in a healthy and safe environment so that you can thrive. Remove the things and the people that are sucking the life out of you, eating away at you, and poisoning you. It is okay to learn boundaries and to use them to protect your peace. Be patient with yourself. We all go through seasons, and you will bloom when your time is right. Remember that you are more than your diagnosis, and we can beat the stigma of mental health by continuing to share our stories with one another. So look after yourself, check on your mates, because we all deserve the sunshine. I'd like to show you something that I've made for you guys. Thank you for your time. Yeah. Ta-da!
Thank you, Nikita. Nikita will be handing out business cards later, won't you? She's finding them in a bag now, so. Oh, you didn't hear. I said you'll be handing out business cards later, so yeah. Our next speaker, I think, doesn't need an introduction, but I'll give him one anyway. Who doesn't know Jimmy Sheehan? Two people. I keep going around and I meet people and I say, oh, do you know Jimmy Sheehan? They go, yeah, I know him. So Jimmy's contribution to today is 5-1, Taming the Black Dog. A soliloquy that doesn't play nice. It plays with the silence between the notes, the unsung verses behind a smile. It's the feedback beneath the polished track, the offbeat rhythm you can't ignore. Not all is as it appears. Some smiles are just backup vocals to a scream no one hears. When his piece is done, he wants you to ask this. When you ask, is someone really okay? Are they? Or are they just stuck on repeat, masking the chaos with a well-rehearsed chorus? This item asks you to listen closer, because sometimes the loudest cries are buried in the quietest songs. Jimmy Sheehan.
Hi everyone, my name is James. To some of you, I'm Jim or Jimmy. I'm an accountant, a bean counter if you will, by the day. And on the weekends, when the sun's gone to bed, I'm an entertainer. I have a karaoke and trivia business. I'm married, no kids just yet. I'm the oldest of 4 siblings, and the son to a widow. In my 34 years on this earth, I've been many things. I've been a teacher, a student, a mentor, a rock. I'm in my prime, I'm loved and I'm needed. But sometimes late at night, as I toss and I turn, I wake up in icy cold sweats and remember that I've been other things. I've been a puddle on the floor. I've been the dirt on somebody else's shoe. And that's when the light leaves and the black dog arrives. This damn thing, it's been biting at me for years, and we've been inseparable since I was about 12. So sit back, folks, turn up the volume and listen to my story. 5. The black dog. It comes quietly at first, just a few metres behind me, a few subtle yelps, just like a newborn pup. But by the night, it's fed by the darkness. The whine becomes a howl. Its cold breath sends a shiver down my spine. My loneliness, it's conjured up something sinister. I try to ignore it, but I pretend like it's not there, but try as I might, it grows. Bolder, louder, stronger. 4. Growing larger and larger, it's not going away. The black dog, it becomes my constant companion. It sits next to me on my daily drive. It sits across the desk from me at work. It's even made itself welcome in my own bed. There's no moment of respite. It becomes hard to ignore. It uses its weight pressing on my chest and leaves me short of breath. Try as I may to shoo it away, it just bares its teeth. As I stare into its eyes, I see nothing but the abyss. The black dog, it's completely taken over. This just feels like a battle that cannot be won. 3. I feign a smile. I try to overshadow the howls with the laughter. My mates, they don't see the beast, and I don't talk of it either. As the days turn to weeks and the weeks turn to months, it feels like there's no escape. You're just not good enough for anything, and you're better off not here. These words, they swirl around and round in my head like a cyclone in my mind. And you say, that's it, you've won. But then one day, there's a glimmering flash of light, the outstretched hand of a loved one, the smile from a stranger, that mate finally asking, are you okay? I awaken from this long, cold slumber, beaten and bruised, not on the outside, but on the inside. Then there comes a sudden realisation, I will not be defeated. 2. Day by day I grow stronger, and the black dog, the more I speak about it, the weaker it gets. It almost returns to its puppy form, tripping over itself and occasionally nipping at my heels, but it's easier to maintain. Some days it howls loud and tries to show who is alpha. The memory of its former power weighs heavy on my chest. But now it is I that is the alpha. I no longer fear the shadow it casts. 1. And now here I stand before you today. The black dog, it's still here with me, but it does not define me. I've learned to live with it. After all, without the light, there is no darkness. And although it may tug at the leash again and again, I am the author of my destiny. I am bolder, louder, stronger.
Jimmy joined us from day one, and his enthusiasm has carried us all the way through with this. Thank you, Jimmy, for the motivation to keep doing this, because it's only the people behind me who keep this going. It's got nothing to do with me. I can just book a room, but it's the people who are sharing their stories. And I think we've delivered on diversity of stories too. We started off with the mayor, then we got a gardener, then we've got an accountant, and now we've got an ex-school principal. So I'd like to... Trauma occurs in everyone's life and can affect people socially, emotionally, physically, and most importantly, mentally. One never knows when trauma may occur or how one will cope or deal with it, nor the impact it will have. Our next speaker will talk about the effects of 2 traumatic events in her life. The first occasion was when she was principal of Mittagong Public School, and the second occurred after she had retired. Jenny Carter grew up in Boorowa, lived away for 50 years and returned in 2014. Please welcome Jenny Carter.
Yesterday at the rehearsal, I really messed this up because I was trying to do it from memory, and if you look at the colour of my hair, the memory isn't so good anymore. So today I'm going to actually use the notes and put my glasses on rather than hold them. I'll put my gloves on the lectern. So, good afternoon everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Jenny. And today I am speaking about trauma and its effects. Everyone experiences trauma to some degree during their life. Trauma does not have to be a massive life-changing event. It can be something in the scheme of things which may appear very trivial. I'm going to tell you about traumatic events in my life with an emphasis on 2 events in particular. One which illustrates a minor event and the other a very major event. Now I'm going to begin back in the year 1974 when I was seconded to the Defence Force to teach children on Penang Island in Malaysia. It was an RAAF school. I'd been in Penang for about 3 weeks or so when a man jumped out and tried to stab me. He wanted to take my bag. I held his hands back really here so the knife wouldn't go in too far, and luckily the girl walking with me began beating the man about his head so that he gave up and ran away. I reported the incident to the RAAF police, which I was required to do, and they said to me, "You're lucky this didn't happen in King's Cross." So after that incident, for many months, I used to turn and confront anyone who walked too close to me, either behind me or beside me, or if I heard running feet. I think I probably traumatised quite a few people in that period of time. In December 1974, again the same year, I took a flight from Kuala Lumpur to London with the Russian airline Aeroflot. Aeroflot was renowned for its pilots being ex-MiG fighter pilots. It was a cheap airline to fly with, and somewhere over the ocean between KL and Delhi, smoke began pouring into the cabin. People began panicking and they were rushing towards the exits, which were locked. I stayed seated, as I couldn't see of any way that I could get out of the plane and escape from the smoke. I resigned myself to the fact I would die, either from the smoke or from its crashing in after an explosion in the plane. Suddenly, a Russian woman in a uniform came down the aisle and she screamed out, "Do not be concerned. It is just the air conditioning. Now sit down." And we all sat down very peacefully and very quietly. Trauma this time was being on a plane with people panicking and trying to get off. If the smoke was not noxious, there was nothing I could do. Now this was quite traumatic, but given that I was young and excited about travelling to London for Christmas and then on to New York for New Year, I hoped the flight attendant was correct, as my whole trip was with Aeroflot, and so was the return. One thing about Aeroflot I could say is you couldn't lose your luggage, as you had to go out onto the tarmac and identify your bag before they'd load it on the plane. That wasn't very traumatic, that bit. At 18, this is another traumatic event, I was told I could only be conditionally certified as a teacher because I'm left-handed. Now, can you believe that? I was the spawn of the devil. But the reality was, if I couldn't get fully certificated, I could never be promoted. I was allocated to handwriting remedials, and after 3 weeks, the lecturer said to me, "Please leave, I'm going to say you can do this, because I can't stand seeing the tears running down your face." Trying to use my right hand for writing caused a real pain in my brain, and so tears ran down my face. Anyway, they must have changed the rules because I was able to be promoted, and left-handed kids were lucky that they did have a role model. Not that the lecturer could understand that I could be a role model for that 10% of children that don't fit the norm of being right-handed. We left-handed teachers were pretty few and far between back then. Now, there was another traumatic event when my soon-to-be husband, who's sitting in the audience here today, and I came home to tell my parents we were going to get married. My father said to my to-be husband, "I am so glad Jenny has finally found someone to marry her. Now, and take her off our hands." I was 30. I had lived overseas for 3 years. I had travelled extensively during that time. I'd also travelled quite extensively throughout Australia. I'd worked in schools around New South Wales, and I was buying my own unit in Sydney. I wasn't aware that I was on my parents' hands. The effect of this trauma was that it gave me a good laugh. Anyway, it's now time to start telling you about 2 more recent traumatic events which impacted me in very different ways. In 1996, I fell on the playground at Mittagong Public School. I fractured my right ankle so that my foot left my leg and hung out to the side. I was around about 46 at the time, and 5 months later I returned to school after it was repaired. Well, a few years later, I began to forget things. Where had I put something? What was I going to do? Where had I parked the car? My concentration was really poor, and eventually I nearly ran into another car. Now, this combination of events prompted me to seek medical attention. I was referred to a clinical psychologist in Hurlston Park in Sydney. I had depression. And believe me, depression doesn't always manifest itself in the way you think it does. After a number of sessions with the psychologist, the reason for the depression became apparent. Now, you would think it was the fall and the fact that my foot left my leg. Well, it wasn't that. Nor was it the fact that more than 500 kids filed past me that afternoon at 3 o'clock as I lay on the playground waiting for the ambulance. Nor was it the difficulty I had in learning to walk again, or that my ankle wouldn't and still doesn't bend properly. Depression was caused by the fact that I had to change my style of dressing. I had to wear flat shoes, and at that time, high heels were really fashionable. In other words, my concept of myself as a professional had to change. My therapist worked with me, and eventually I accepted that while I was dressed differently, I was still a professional, no matter that I was wearing flat shoes and using a walking stick. Just me accepting the new me took quite some time, but I eventually got there. Now, as I said, trauma, no matter how innocuous, like having to wear flat shoes, can have an impact, even well after an event. I'm now going to set the scene for another traumatic event which was much more devastating. I was in a car accident in November 2016. I was unconscious for 17 days, had amnesia for a month, I had a fractured skull and a bleed on the brain, among many other injuries. I was in Canberra Hospital for 7 weeks, and then I was transferred to Liverpool Brain Injury Unit. The diagnosis was that I would be physically and mentally impaired for the rest of my life. Well, the road travel since arriving back in Boorowa in March 2017 has been interesting for my husband and I. For the first 6 months, either a social worker, an occupational therapist, or a psychologist travelled from Sydney to assess my physical and mental progress on a monthly basis. I had lost my confidence in my ability to do things, so I had to dredge up memories of how Mum completed housework, how she cooked, cleaned, and how she faced a world in which everything was literally black. Luckily, my memory was functioning, because I can remember asking a woman who dropped in if my house smelt clean. You see, I've lost my senses of taste and smell. When speaking, I didn't know whether I made sense, so I constantly bombarded my husband with the question, am I making sense? Does that make sense? I was shocked to learn that I'd lost my licence as a result of the head injury. I wasn't the driver. I found out I had to undergo 2 days of testing to regain my licence 12 months later. Now, the thought of undergoing 2 days of testing to regain my licence was fairly traumatic too. I had received my licence in 1966 and I'd been able to drive since I was 8. So how do you undergo 2 days of testing to get a licence back at age 66? What was involved in the 2 days? No one could or would tell me. This was traumatic, I can tell you, thinking about what would happen in those 2 days. Well, I did do the 2 days of testing, and now I can tell anyone else who might find themselves in a similar situation what is involved. My intelligence was assessed. I was told that I wasn't as intelligent as I had been. Now, this didn't help with trauma. I didn't know whether I was behaving sensibly, rationally, reasonably. Again, I bombarded my husband, so perhaps he should be up here telling about his trauma in dealing with me during this period of time. I have been told that I am at risk of dementia as a result of the bleed on the brain, so I endeavour to keep my brain and my body active daily. From 2014 till 2024, I was traumatised to some extent. Everything I did with intensity. Or that I still do, I do with intensity. So maybe I was always like that. I just know that at the end of 2024, I felt as though my brain had come out of a cage. There were positives from the brain injury. My memory bank wasn't impaired. I was asked to come back to Liverpool Brain Injury Unit each month to talk to other brain-injured people. Now, this was because I'd talked to a woman that was in the room beside me. She would ring for medical assistance all the time. I mean, it just never stopped, and it nearly drove me crazy. She told me she had a brain injury and she wasn't going to improve, and that she couldn't improve from where she was, which was just lying on a bed. Well, I stopped and talked to her in her room a few times, and after a while she began participating in therapies. I didn't take up the invitation to go back to Liverpool because, let's face it, Boorowa isn't exactly close to Liverpool. Now, I think this is a positive from a trauma specialist I had to see once I was back in Boorowa. I suggested I would be an excellent subject for someone studying effects of brain injury and why I had recovered. Do you know what she said to me? Don't be ridiculous. You'd be absolutely hopeless. You would be dreadful. You throw out all our current knowledge about brain injury. You should not have recovered. You're an outlier. I think I come from a family of outliers, and those who know my family and its medical history would understand this comment. And I just accidentally turned 2 pages at once, but it's not that much longer. I was told that I'd contributed to my own rehabilitation as well, because I undertook getting well some of the things myself, and I didn't expect that medical intervention could do it all. So I read rather than watch TV. I participated in every activity, whether it was physiotherapy, gardening, shopping, cooking, reading or conversation, doing crossword puzzles or walking around inside the unit and every day chatting to staff and to other patients. And doing this was a challenge and extremely challenging. Doing this was a challenge, and at times it was extremely difficult. Now, this is a very secure unit, and in there I heard some awful sounds and noises and cries and screams. While I began in a room at one end of the ward, right away from the door and directly opposite the staff station, as my condition improved, I was moved to a section approximately a third of the way along the ward. When it became obvious that I would make a recovery, I shared a room with another patient whose ex-husband had shot her in the head because she had formed a relationship with another partner. She had been admitted to the unit well before I was, and she was there when I left. Within the unit, I met quite a lot of people who'd sustained traumatic brain injuries in various ways, through falling off buildings, at construction sites, through motorbike and car accidents, fights, being beaten, falling over and just banging their heads. I often wonder how they are. Have they been as fortunate as me? Are they still there? Undoubtedly, there are some still within the unit or in some similar facility. May I conclude with advice for anyone with a traumatic brain injury. Don't lock away the trauma. Open the drawer for however long it takes. Face up to each day and remind yourself of what is important. Believe you can improve and you can make a better you. I can now say that I recognise my brain is well. Mentally, I am okay. Now, I was going to finish with an action based on the Village People's YMCA, so that you remember that mental illness comes in many forms and that we should regard mental health as vital as physical health. Mental health is not stigmatising. Now, I'm going to come to the front and demonstrate the word trauma with my left side, because my right shoulder is a problem and I can't raise that arm. So I'm going to ask the audience to participate in this. You don't get out free, you know. And I'm going to ask you to use both arms, and please don't hurt the person beside you. You can stand if you'd like, and if it'd make it easier. Hopefully this isn't too traumatic for you. So, trauma, like the Village People, but without the steps and the music. Here
Jenny, it's just like attending assembly, isn't it?
Yes. As long as you behaved appropriately.
Yeah.
Otherwise you came to the office.
All right, thank you, Jenny. Our next speaker is Lynn Diskin, a mother of 4, grandmother of 14, and a great-grandmother of 4 so far. Are they still going, are they?
Well, 14 grandkids, only 2 have had children.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you've got a lot to go. Lynn has spent most of her working life in event management and mostly in community development. She has worked with unemployed people, homeless people, street kids, volunteers, and with First Nations organisations. And after having moved around a lot, mostly due to work, Lynn chose just over 12 years ago to come and live in Boorowa, has never regretted it, and you will often find her at the op shop. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you, everyone. I hadn't originally intended to be here doing this today, but we had a very late withdrawal, so yes, I put my hand up. Many of you here today do know me to some degree or another, and to you, I often seem to be a strong and self-confident person. Well, I'm here to tell you I am not. I am constantly filled with feelings of self-blame, guilt, I have lack of interest, I often feel that I'm less than. I frequently have very low motivation, lack of energy, trouble concentrating, and very poor self-esteem. I'm often, as I said before, self-critical, socially withdrawn. I have a fear of not being good enough, of being caught out, and I have a difficulty accepting compliments. Nah, no way. Most of you will say, that's not the Lynn we know. Well, it's true. My closest friends do know that it's true. They know that I've got a row of Oscars on a shelf in my home. That is, they know I'm very good at acting strong and confident. But I often, with that, feel as though I'm an imposter, a phony, a fraud, a sham, a pretender. I have been diagnosed with what is called a major depressive disorder. With that, I researched and I've discovered there are many causes of this, including, but not limited to, genetics and environmental things, such as stressful life events, childhood abuse. I've also discovered that depression is often linked to a lower ratio of certain chemicals in the brain. So, what is my story? I was brought up as the eldest of 4 girls, but I always seemed to be the one who was not good enough, that my sisters were prettier than me, more clever, nicer, more good, and that whatever I did to try and gain my mother's approval and praise, I was a poor substitute for a daughter. I was often hit with my mother's hard-soled slipper, her tape measure, the kettle cord. And I'd even been accused, very wrongly, of taking drugs, and I was frequently told that I would be sent to a girls' home. Was all this childhood abuse? I wonder. That's one of the causes, supposedly. But that's not to say I didn't have times that were happy in my childhood. Well, then at 16, I became pregnant to my then boyfriend. Talk about stressful. 1971, to be a 16-year-old schoolgirl and pregnant. My boyfriend's mother wanted me to have an abortion. In those days, they were backyard jobs. My mother wanted me to go interstate to live with my aunt, have the baby, and have it adopted out. Then I could come home. I clearly, to this day, remember her saying, "How do you expect your sisters to meet and marry nice men with the sort of reputation you'll have? What will the neighbours say?" That was the norm for that period. But this time, for once, I stood up to my mother. I fought against both mothers, actually, and with the help of our local church minister, I persuaded them to let my boyfriend and I get married. So my son was born in February 1972. I turned 17 in the May. In those days, I was not permitted by my mother or the education system to return to school and study for my HSC. On my 18th birthday, I had a miscarriage, and before I was 19, my oldest daughter was born. At 22, I separated from my then husband and was divorced the following year. In that divorce hearing, I clearly remember the magistrate saying, "I am not satisfied with the circumstances surrounding these children, but as the father has agreed, I will allow them to live with their mother." That was in the very early days of the current family law, the current no-blame divorce system. Since then, I've had 2 more children, April 1980 and June 1981. I've been married and divorced 2 more times. So 3 marriages, 3 divorces. People tell you they're all traumatic. I've had several surgeries, including for varicose veins in both legs and a hysterectomy. And I regularly have colonoscopies because bowel cancer is what killed my mother, much younger than I am now. I have fallen deeply in love with and been betrayed by yet another man. In the meantime, I've lived at 53 addresses in 32 towns across 4 states and the ACT. This includes living on a boat on the Clarence River and living on and working on King Island in the middle of Bass Strait. I have bought and sold 8 houses, and 12 years ago bought my lovely little cottage here in Boorowa. I have been renovating this lovely little cottage. I've had more than 20 jobs, and in 2 of them I was bullied by senior personnel, and I've had my life threatened once. All of these things, I am told, are stressful life events. So brother, have I had some, several of them. Added to all this, my youngest daughter, about 6 years ago when she was about 38, decided she hated all the family, especially me. She told me I was manipulative, narcissistic and toxic. And she took her whole family away. Well, all my family, her siblings, are not permitted to know where they are. I am not permitted to have anything to do with her children, my grandchildren. She has not been in contact with any of us. That brought me to tears too. As for genetics, being a contributor to depression, looking back, I now understand that my mother was a very sad and bitter woman and was herself depressed. When growing up, and even as an adult, my mother and sisters frequently told me, "Snap out of it, stop feeling sorry for yourself, lighten up." One sister even told me that having been pregnant so young and having to get married and then be divorced so many times, that I had brought shame and disgrace to the family. All of this added to my sense of not being good enough. So, how have I dealt with it? As a child, I knew nothing different. I thought my life was as it should be, that everyone's mum was the same. I didn't realise that she treated my sisters differently to myself. When I was 16 and faced with the options presented by my boyfriend's mother and my own, I did defy them. I stood up that time and fought for the right to have and keep my baby. He is now a 53-year-old IT guru, a software solutions architect, and a grandfather of 3. Following my various divorces, I had to keep going for my children's sakes. I tried to give them the best life I could. I never told them that they should go to a boys' home or a girls' home, and I always, and I still do, tell them they are loved and capable of doing and being whatever they want to be. Yes, the stresses of moving house was mostly to follow various husbands' jobs, and then later on to ensure I kept working to feed my children and myself. That was how I coped as I kept going. So when was the depression diagnosed, and what has been done about it? I was first diagnosed following the second time my life was threatened. I was told that I was going to be killed by a screwdriver being held by a drunk and stoned man. I can tell you every detail of what he looked like, but to this day, I still cannot tell you the colour of the handle or whether that screwdriver was a Phillips or flathead. I thought I was coping with that scenario, but a psychologist friend of mine assured me I was not and suggested I go to my doctor for medication and for referral to another psychologist. I couldn't see her, she was a friend. The next time I had depression was following workplace bullying. I was forced out of a job I enjoyed. I was then medicated for 12 months. First time 6 months, second time 12. A few years later, again following workplace bullying, where I was being pressured by some of the board to sack one of my staff. While I was not friends with that staff member, they were doing their job very well, and I could see no reason to sack them. This particular incident stressed me so much that my doctor prescribed medication again and put me on medical leave. When driving home to take that leave, I was so stressed and anxious and uptight that just outside one of the towns on the way home, when you've got a tummy ache and you know that a little fart will ease that pressure, well, I had that in the car. So I let go a little fart. It wasn't a fart. I shit myself. It was an awful mess. I was so shaken, I pulled over, opened the car door on the opposite side of the road and sat in my mess and cried. I then got up, cleaned myself up as best I could and drive home. Now, that's not something I'm proud of, but that's how stressed I was. When I got home, I spent the next 2 days in bed, not seeing anyone, not eating, and only getting out of bed for a glass of water or to go to the toilet, and I put that off as long as I could. I am now permanently medicated. Yes, sometimes I do stop taking the medicine for a few weeks, just to test myself, but I end up feeling myself slipping back into the depression, so I take it again. Sometimes, and through all of this, I feel extremely anxious. My anxiety manifests itself by a feeling of a tight iron band around my middle, just under the boobs. For a while I was medicated for that too. But now, recognising the signs, I just undo my bra, go and lay down and breathe deeply. It just takes the pressure off. It is through understanding my depression and my anxiety and taking my medication and talking about it that I was able to earn these Oscars on my shelf. Apart from what Tim explained about my kids and grandkids and so on, and who I've worked with, at age 60, I completed a master's degree through the University of Tasmania. My major was regional development, regional innovation. While I was working as a CEO, and I did finish those studies while I was working as a CEO, managing a number of staff, and with an annual budget of over 33 million. Yet, I still found myself inadequate. Then I chose, over 12 years ago, to come and live in Boorowa. And as Tim said, I've never, ever regretted it. I find the town, the area, the people, and the strong sense of community give me a wonderful feeling of security. A security that allows me to be myself and to be able to retreat into myself when I need to regain my sense of groundedness. Yes, I bought a small old stone cottage and while still working have been restoring it. It's a labour of love, but it's my forever home. Then, as a way of giving back to the community that has given me so much, I joined Rotary, became involved in a number of other community organisations, such as the Local Health Advisory Committee, or LHAC, Boorowa Business Chamber, and other groups. However, I still often feel as though I am not good enough as a person, or that what I might do may be not good enough. And when that happens, I do try and hibernate. So, as I finish, I'll finish with this particular little bit. Here is a $100 note. Hands up those who want me to give them $100. Okay? What if I do that? Who wants it now? Who wants it now? That's interesting. Do you know, that shows us a very valuable lesson. No matter what I did with the money, you still wanted it, because it did not decrease in value. It is still worth $100, correct? Many times in our lives, we are dropped, crushed, ground into the dirt by the decisions we make or circumstances that come our way. We often feel as though we are worthless. But just like this $100 note, no matter what has happened or what will happen, you will never lose your value. Dirty or clean, crumpled or finely creased, you are still priceless. Broken in mind or body, you are still priceless. You may never know the lives you touch, the hope you can bring to others. The worth of our lives comes not from what we do or who we know, but it comes from who we are. You are special. Don't ever forget that. So count your blessings, not your problems, and ask for help. Yes, you can, even if it's just to have a chat with someone. And remember, amateurs built the Ark, professionals built the Titanic. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn, and I'll grab that 100 back off you, thanks. I have the pleasure to introduce the author of that poem, who's Lindy Jewett. A life lived well is one that has happiness, highs, lows, and just some plain awful times we live through. Poor mental health has been prominent in Lindy's life, including antenatal and postnatal depression. Lindy loves her family and friends, music, writing, and creating art, her cherished pets, and mostly her 4 sons. She hasn't mentioned that she's a good poet as well, you know. However, even during the times that seemed insurmountable, it was her 4 sons that kept her grounded, giving her purpose and keeping her constantly busy. Learning to smile through adversity and always looking for the silver lining became a constant daily illusion to the outside world. Depression, anxiety, or a combination of the two has been a journey for over 35 years, and it's been her battle. Resilience is a capacity to withstand and recover, and Lindy is sharing her story, hoping to help others to find the strength they need to ask for some help to write their own songs of resilience. Please welcome Lindy Jewett.
Hello. Thank you for being here today. It's fantastic to be a part of this Songs of Resilience TIMBA presentation. To start with, today I wore these earrings that I never wear. And I wasn't actually going to start with this, but it came up because since I got to Boorowa today, I have lost one of my earrings twice. Now, I have a saying that I say to my children, particularly my eldest son: the greater the emphasis on perfection, the further it recedes. So this earring came back to me in the Boorowa Hotel was found by my partner's mum under the table, and then it came back to me again from under this chair up here, found by Daryl. So I'm not going to put them back in, but I just wanted to share with you that we just never know what we're looking for until it's found. We all have a story. The only way is up. Our personal stories will inspire others to hopefully help themselves or encourage someone they know to talk about the messy head talk that can almost consume you when you are facing depression and anxiety. Don't stop believing. Life is a journey. There was a child who was sick, not life-threatening, but very real illness that was invisible. There was a teenager who became sicker and withdrawn. A checkered medical history, however very real, nothing that was going to kill me. Told there is nothing wrong with me. You're not sick. Doctors would say there's nothing wrong with her. Look at her rosy cheeks. Told you'll never amount to much, and your peers will reject you. You will need to repeat by a high school principal. Finally, 5 years later, I was diagnosed. There was an endocrinologist who knew I was sick. I was diagnosed with ME, or chronic fatigue syndrome, as you may know it. ME is myalgic encephalomyelitis, which literally translates to muscle pain and inflammation in the brain and spinal cord. It rolls off my tongue easily, doesn't it? It was real. I had spent weeks at a time in bed with debilitating fatigue, migraine for months. This was very confusing, being told there's nothing wrong with you for years. Years of anguish and trauma. I was only a child. I thought I was crazy. This ensured that my education was stolen. Lonely learning through correspondence schooling, no internet or email back then, in the 1980s. Then suicide, suicidal thoughts, trauma and depression. Then an attempt to end a life. There was a teenager told to get a job. I had a good haircut, but didn't need a real job. All I wanted was an education. Running up that hill starts. There was a teenager who ran and ran. Turns out alcohol and cigarettes numb stuff for a while, but makes sadness and depression worse. I stumbled through. No counselling back then. Fortunately, I had a faith, a couple of confidants, and I found a mentor in an author. That book, still to this day, is by my bed. I just kept going. The primitive reflex of fight or flight is an internal survival mechanism. I was permanently stuck in flight. Just keep running, it won't catch you, quick. I was never very sporty, however, this was my mental health marathon. Why am I still here? I'm worthless. There was a teenager still running, not heard, not seen or believed. I'm tired, please let me stop running. Am I strong enough to ignore the messy head? Nobody knows how I really feel, more trauma. There's a teenager living in a city making the best of what she can do. Turns out I'm good at something. Nurturing and helping others as a beauty therapist. I loved it. There is a young woman who dreamt of journalism and vet science. This will have to do. I'll make it work. Mud cake and massage gave her courage to not slip under that peak hour traffic or the daily city trains. Funeral directions safely written just in case, prayers and all. I still have them amongst my dust. I found my first job with an amazing mentor, then managing another salon within the first year. There is a young woman who became a target and who experienced an unthinkable trauma and grief. Here she goes up that hill again, this time in a sports car with a turbo, going real fast. I'm not worthy, depressed, anxious, scared, running, trapped, berated and frightened, still loving my work, I'm good at that. How am I still here? Alcohol and cigarettes my crutch. I travelled the world. saw it, and then I opened a business. I was living and creating forever memories. With help, I found courage to actually walk away from the captor in my life. There is angels throughout my life, not necessarily with wings. It made me think twice. Life became beautiful in my eyes, and I can be my hero. Skipping ahead, 2002, married and happy, fell pregnant easily. Now this is a tough part of my story. I always wanted to be a mum. I was so sick with extreme morning sickness all the way through, diagnosed with antenatal depression due to being so ill. Couldn't sleep, hours walking around the backyard through the night. Medical intervention, medicated at 19 weeks pregnant. Baby was fine, I'm not. Can't eat, work, sleep, or even think. Postnatal depression, then counselling. Then a miscarriage, blaming myself, more counselling. Antenatal depression, so scared I might lose this bub, trying to calm my fear, rocking as I lay in the fetal position. There was an eerie silence too. I felt like an empty vessel. Postnatal depression, more counselling. Antenatal depression, not so bad, no specialist yet. My third pregnancy, still morning sickness all the way through. Postnatal depression, extreme. 2 counsellors, 1 specialising in trauma. Life is not perfect, and it's not as perfect as it might look. I am so tired, why can't I run faster to leave it behind? It still catches me. My last pregnancy was not as hard because I was not quite as sick or quite as antenatally depressed. Still having regular check-ins with my counsellor. My amazing children still have me in awe of them. They kept me grounded with a purpose. Being a mum was my life mission. Turns out I was good at being a mum of 4 sons. I'll do whatever it takes for them. More trauma, and the toughest one yet, because now I have these 4 quarters of my heart to be strong for. I am titanium became my motto. More counselling. I'm up to about 12 years now. It's therapeutic talking about the mess in your head, trying to empty all the thoughts swirling. Still no specialist though. My besties became my confidants, and we worked through heaps of stuff. Informal counselling, I call it, with laughter, lots of it. In 2019, I had many and varied symptoms. Had to really fight for a diagnosis. After years of misdiagnosis. In 2020, glowworms and scars in my brain were found. No wonder. There were so many random symptoms. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. My neurologist hit the MS with the strongest medication available to halt progression, hopefully. It was a tumultuous time learning to do simple things like chewing. My tongue wouldn't work properly. Swallowing without choking, walking without tripping, or losing my balance. I did just fall over at times. Unable to work in a job I loved, my left side affected with a tremor. Adjusting to the cocktail of necessary medications. In 2024, during a breakdown, the mental health team was in my house within hours. Half of that time I was on the phone to one of them, roughly. This was an amazing response from my GP, the local mental health team, and finally a psychiatric appointment. I didn't want to have to go through my whole life story again, but I had to for an accurate specialist evaluation. It's exhausting and can be traumatic all over again. Doctors said in the past to people who cared for me, I know all about it, I know all about the depression. While I was the one living with the depression, it can be extremely taxing on primary carers too. They need support. Answering questions 100-fold to finally have valid psychiatric answers. It was the real deal. Can we fix it? Yes, we can. Medication dose has only varied since 2002. Now the psychiatrist put me on another medication, weaning down the original one, going up slowly with the other one. I've always believed that in order to fix or heal anything, then you need to know exactly what you're working with. It was a really scary time. I'm grateful that I've been able to maintain a sense of humour. Laughter really is medicine. When my oldest son was about 4, I was crying. Postnatal depression was one of the loneliest places I'd been. He asked me, "Why are you crying, Mummy?" I said, "Oh, darling, sometimes we just get sad." He looked at me and said, "No, Mummy, you're a very suppressed woman." I could not believe what I'd heard from this tiny person who was so wise. I took a deep breath and I was smiling at that point like I am now, because I thought, you have just put it into perspective, and I love you for it. If there's one thing you take away today, let it be put your hand out if you need help. It doesn't matter if you're an older person, a young person, if you're pregnant, or you've just had a beautiful baby. Or if you know someone who needs support, help them to get some. It takes guts to accept that you need help. I'm telling this short, edited version of my long journey to encourage you to dig deep, cry, scream, and find your strength to get yourself heard. Don't ever be ashamed of your story. Ask for help. Realise your self-worth. You deserve support. I'll share with you one of my coping mechanisms, my techniques, that I do. You just stop, breathe, and be still. Placing one hand on your forehead, the other hand at the base of your head, just at the top of your neck. Stop, breathe, and be still. Breathe deeply in and slowly out. Just breathe and believe all is well in your world. Sometimes all you need to do is just stop and just be where you are. I'm going to finish now by reading you another one of my poems, if it will come up on my phone. Oh, there it is. I have so many poems that I've written since I was about 14, and this one is one that the first couple of lines go through my head, and that could happen for a couple of months sometimes before the rest of it just comes flowing out as soon as I sit down with a pen and paper. So this is called Getting Out of My Head. Collector of rust, dust and books never read, no time, no rhyme, because I'm stuck in my head. There's thoughts swirling fast and dark, must be a way to go back, find the spark. Don't want to step back, the present's the place that fits right, too much rubbish back there, piles of shite. No pretending will ever mean it all to be true, no pretending will ever mean that's truly you. Looking past into the future, not the way through, right, living right in this moment's the only clue. Unless you've been here, you've got no idea of the struggle within that goes under the radar. Pretense, ignorance from society is spread wide and far. Treading water amongst the rusty ravine, it's scary and murky like nothing you've seen. Wading back to the eventual shoreline, being wrapped in the towel of now, you'll be just fine. The minute these words don't flow from my hand, it's then that I forget to understand. This is now not forward too much and never back. The glimmer of hope lights the way through the black. What anyone else thinks they know about you, quite frankly, is none of your business, and that's true. If you're still here in the dust and treasure, I applaud your courage. By the way, it is my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lindy. I can tell you it was quite a progression. We did, not that we did every day, but once a month for about 3 months we did rehearsals of people putting their stories together. And I know that Lindy started on very shaky about what she was going to talk about and how she was going to put it together, but she did really well of getting it together and getting her story, because hers is a big story. So, and her poetry is wonderful. So, like she said, she's got lots of it. We couldn't pick which one we wanted. So, okay. Last but not least is another man who has helped drive this, whose voice of reason was fantastic for us all within this process. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our last speaker, Daryl Armour. Daryl is a local bloke currently working here at the school. Sorry, did I drag you in on a non-school day? Today he will share some of his journey through drought. When the rains don't come and the grass don't grow, where do you go? When all hope seems lost, with sheep to feed, no money to pay, can I face another day? Please join me in welcoming Daryl.
No, it's not a Salvation Army ad. The opening video clip was part of the Red Shield appeal for the Salvation Army in 2006. We were a family on TV, on billboards across the country. Between that appeal and a fundraising luncheon at Parramatta Leagues Club, at which I spoke to 200 Sydney business executives about the personal effects of drought, we raised $1 million to place more rural councillors this side of the mountains where it counts for rural people. In a very tough and dark period in life, I look back and think that the provision of more rural councillors may well have provided life-saving changes and outcomes for many rural families. Hi, my name's Daryl, and I am a local here since 2007. I don't know whether that makes me a local at that stage. But I lived at Rye Park, 20k that way, since birth in 1961 through to 2007. I did my high school here at this school. I'm married to Robin. I have 5 kids and 12 3/4 grandkids. I've been a wool grower, a shearer, a wool classer, a wool buyer, a cabinet maker, a handyman, a lay pastor at the Baptist Church at Yass, a farm labourer, and a few other paying hobbies, mostly involving wood. My mental health journey begins in 2001, when we purchased my parents' farm. At the end, to add to our own place, giving us 632 hectares, running 4,000 sheep in a self-replacing 18-micron flock. And it stopped raining. Well, it seemed like it did. Not enough rain at critical times of the year. We needed 3 good years. We needed good seasons, we needed good wool prices, and we needed good sheep prices. Instead, we got 5 years of well below average on every aspect. 3 years into this extended dry, well, let's call a spade, 3 years into the millennial drought that lasted 7 years, the bank manager sits across the kitchen table from me and he looks at me and says, "Daryl, is there anything else that you can do?" $40,000 feed bill, $65,000 wool check, sheep selling for 20 cents a head or $1 a truckload, and I shot a fair few and buried them. Life certainly wasn't all beer and Skittles. I was waking at 2 a.m. in the mornings, stressing on how to support my family and how do I feed my sheep. And I can tell you that waking at 2 a.m. in the morning doesn't make it rain. Until one afternoon, we were interviewed by ABC Radio at the house about how we were coping with the drought. Yeah, typical media questions about costs and production and the effect on me and the family and what the future held and all those sorts of things. And then he turned to my wife and asked her what she feared most about the drought. And her response was somewhat gut-wrenching when she said, "When Daryl's late home, I look in the gun cupboard." I never knew. After the interview, he turned the recorder off and he looked at me in the eye and he said, "You need to see a doctor, mate. I've been where you are and I can tell the signs." Seemed like he'd hardly spoken the words and Robin was on the phone and made an appointment. Yes, I was suffering from anxiety and depression. Antidepressants, medication was prescribed by my doctor. They helped. They helped me sleep at night. If you can get a good night's sleep, you can mostly cope with the next day. And so the long journey to recovery began. Lots of decisions to make. My welfare, my family's well-being. What does the future look like from here on? What if this? What if that? On one hand, we could do this. On the other hand, we could do that. And I was fast running out of hands of what we were going to do. I was very mindful of the stress the situation was putting on my family. They could tell things weren't right for me. I was a bit shorter in the fuse than I mostly was. I yelled at the dog a lot more. It was hard to hide the pain and protect your family. I never considered I was seriously suicidal, but I would be lying if I said I never thought about it. And I sure understand how a sudden turn of events can tip you over the edge. Something as simple as getting 2 mobs of sheep boxed can tip you over the edge on the wrong day. So we made the decision to sell one of our farms, the one that I'd bought off my father, but there were no takers. So after agonising about the future, we decided to sell both farms and I would go and do something else. Through heartache and tears, we sold the farm. We endured a clearing sale. We sent 25 years of sheep breeding to the abattoirs because we were still in drought and nobody wanted to buy them. It was tough on all of us, and we all grieved in our own ways. So we packed our belongings and our what-ifs and moved here to Boorowa. Bought a block, built a home. I worked in a local business here making kitchens. We built nice hardwood furniture. I helped in the building supply part of the business, and I'm grateful for that opportunity to be employed. But my greatest support was the love of my family, of which 4 are here today, and my faith in God, and a hope in Christ that there would be a better future. Without that underpinning faith, I may never have made it. One of my son's comments probably summed it up. When we went on a road trip, he said, "Well, Dad, we may not have a farm, but I still have a father." And if it wasn't for that ABC radio interviewer being willing to speak a few direct words to me and challenge me about breaking the stigma of not talking about mental health, who knows what could happen. You can see a broken leg, but it's not so easy to see inside at a broken head or a broken heart. How many times do we hear after suicide or tragedy, "I didn't know," or "I had no idea"? So I sleep now. I still take an antidepressant, and I've developed coping mechanisms. My coping mechanism has become my woodwork shed, my man cave, if you like. I make stuff, jewellery boxes, furniture, whatever you like, out of native Australian hardwood. I do it when circumstances consume my mind. I head to the shed. My friends, I encourage you, if you're struggling with the day-to-day or a mental health concern, get a hobby. Find an outlet to divert your thought pattern. Mine's wood. Yours could be knitting. It could be golf or any other sport that you might like to play. My doctor recommended an early morning walk. My dad did hundreds of cross stitches in his retirement years to occupy his mind while he was in retirement. The options are endless. My doctor didn't recommend looking down the neck of an empty bottle. Excessive or compulsive alcohol is not a solution, but it's often a sign that there might be something underlying. Find something constructive to do. And I speak to you men, we need to learn how to talk. We need to find someone to talk to. See your doctor if you need to, but talk about what's bothering you. It's not a sign of weakness to speak up. In fact, it shows great strength to be able to share and to seek help and support for yourself. You know, the basic definition of a drought is the absence of adequate rain. In my case, it was the absence of adequate rain that directly affected my mental health journey and the guilt that followed the tough decisions that we had to make. The absence of adequate rain mostly runs hand in hand with the absence of adequate financial resources. Now, we are currently in a drought-declared shire, council area. So you may be sharing some of the same thoughts that I've shared. However, your drought may not have anything to do with rain. It could be the absence of adequate relationships, medical support, physical or mental health support, the absence of an income or quality of life. Maybe you have no general direction in life, or there's just that hollowness, the hollow emptiness that suppresses the real you. This afternoon may have triggered something in you during one of these real life journeys. If you think you need help, speak up. Better to speak now rather than to have your loved ones ask why. So my recovery is under control, but my journey is ongoing. Some days I don't give it another thought, and other days it's nipping at my heels. But I'm still here, and that makes me a survivor. Cheers.
I bumped into Daryl's daughter before, and I said to her, he's going to cry when he talks about you. And he did. That was great. It's great. That's the reason we put Daryl on last, because the impact of his story, especially in the local community, is huge. I've got a few thank yous before we finish. So I'd like to thank everyone involved in supporting the event. Our major sponsors are Mainline Smart Dyno Technology, thanks to Craig and Joanne Marnie, who are over there at the moment. So thanks, guys. They put their money where their mouth is and supporting the community, so thank you very much. Obviously, Lynn Diskin and all from Boorowa Rotary for inviting TIMBA to Boorowa and supporting this event. So that was never going to happen without Lynn and the Boorowa Rotary. So thank you so much. Ange Hart from AWI Consulting. Ange jumped in early to support us. And she's been helping us all along the way, putting her hand up to do whatever she needed. So thanks, Ange from AWI Consulting. And thank you to Graham Jones, the principal, and Tammy Wales from Boorowa Central School, and Jane Grace from TIMBA for her invaluable support along the way. But the major thank you has to go to our wonderful cast of storytellers who, please, a big round of applause for these people. Up again.